This computer, there we go. Yeah. And let me first shout out Mary Kay. Did you get your haircut? Oh, you have a pulled back. Okay. I was going to say, if you do, it looks phenomenal short.
Thank you. No, I was out walking, and so I had it up in a ponytail.
There you go. There you go. Well, let's go around and everybody, if you just say where you're at, just to refresh everyone. And also, Jenny, I'm interested where you landed. So I'm Susan Walker, formerly from the University of Minnesota and now part of the world. And just as a side note, I will not be here next week. I will be coming back from New York. I'm going to be talking at the United Nations next week on families and technology intersected with migration and immigration and urbanization. And they're doing a special expert group meeting. So I'm their tech person. So I get to go there. That'll be fun. And but mostly I get to go to see a Broadway play, and I'm excited about that. So, but anyway, so I will not be here next week, but I leave you in excellent hands, I'm sure. So I will turn it over to Becca.
I'm Becca. I will be beginning my 4th year teaching as a parent educator in Maplewood, Oakdale, North St. Paul, which is District 622. And I'm part-time, but it's been eking a little bit bigger each year. So we'll see what it turns into.
I'm Sarah, and I am with Burnsville 191. I actually found out about this job due to Mary Kay. And I am part-time leading all 0 to 3 classes this quarter. I'm actually having a lot of fun with my baby's classes. I didn't have experience with that before, and now I'm loving it. And there's a little fruit fly or something around me. And I normally don't get to attend on Fridays because I have a class that goes till 12:30. So, but I said, oh, I have, it's open, I can do it today.
I'm Jenny Thompson, and I just finished the program and got my license in the spring, but I was hired in January from Hastings. So I was a Hastings parent educator until about 2 weeks ago. And the position there was not quite full-time. So I was interviewing in other districts just to pick up a couple classes. And Roseville offered me a full-time job because the person, I think that you all know, who had left there, she left there on a Monday and they hired me on a Tuesday. So that was an unexpected change in my life. And so I'm still reeling with feeling bad about leaving Hastings at the end, right before the school year starts and all of that. And I had some lovely families that I was working with. But Hastings, I live in St. Paul, and Hastings is a 30-minute drive in good weather. And so I knew it wasn't going to be long-term sustainable to be driving an hour every day. So Roseville is only 15 minutes from my house. It's also a much more diverse district. And I'm super excited by that. And we spent the first 2 hours of our staff first day talking about anti-racism, which is a passion of mine and not something that we'll leave it at that. But anyway, so I'm super excited. I am also nervous because they designed a schedule for 2 full-time parent educators and their enrollment's low and they're only hiring 1. So I'm it. And then there's 2 early childhood lead teachers, and one of them just resigned this week because she can't get childcare for a baby. So very understandable. And yet, so we've got 2 brand new people. Nobody's been there before, and we're hiring another one. So I keep asking, well, anyway, the previous parent or the previous early childhood lead is going to come meet with us next week, because it would be nice to know some of your traditions and the songs and all the things that the families know that are returning, So anyway, sorry, I'm talking too long, but super excited to be in Roseville.
And Jenny, you're only like 5 minutes from my house, just so you know.
In Roseville?
Yeah, I'm in St. Paul, but almost in Roseville. So I'm just
Okay, great.
super
We
close.
can need to walk and cry this fall.
Sounds perfect.
Mary Kay?
I'm sorry, I didn't know what order I was on your screen. I'm Mary Kay Ashley. I work in Burnsville Egan Savage with Sarah. I was hired there as my first parent ed job in 1987 and have worked and about 10 years later, I was laid off along with 3 other folks when Paul Enty gutted the early childhood funding in Minnesota. And then the moment a parent educator retired, I came back. So I've worked in 5 districts, but Burnsville most of the time. And Sarah has all the birth to 3 classes except for 1.
Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry.
It's okay. I'm just teasing. And I have another job that is more full time. So and I love both of them. So I'm not giving either one of them up unless somebody makes me. And this year, my district decided after I have been driving from 70 miles away for a staff meeting on Thursdays, they decided to move the Thursdays to a Monday when I'm there. So I know that's inconvenient for some, including Sarah, but
No, I can drive the 12 minutes. Okay.
so I'm happy to switch back in a year, but this will be wonderful. It was interesting because our new assistant superintendent talked about at our, yay, rah, rah, back to school thing. He talked about coming into the district as a 22-year-old teacher and working at the alternative school. And I realized that the school where he was at the alternative school, before that was an elementary school, and that my first job in our district was 50 years ago. When I was a sophomore and I worked as a summer school teacher's aide. The first year we had dial-up in that building, and the first thing I did was program. I wrote a program that would guess the kids' names in like 7 questions, and it was really fun. I was taking basic at the high school, and married to a computer guy, so it was really fun. Anyway, that seemed like an awful long time ago, but yeah. So love doing UCFE and love this group.
Yeah, Mary, you're right. 50 years ago, what that was a long time ago. I was not born yet. Thank you. Hey, my name is Yuji. Actually, I'm licensed in Minnesota in 2020 as a parent and family educator, and then moved to Montana. So I started to design and teach a virtual class in January 2021 and till now. So so this is what I'm trying to do, and I think and my focus is virtual. I mean, I started from virtual because that was the COVID. I couldn't do any in person, and then it seems like virtual is really like in need for many parents, especially for parents. Because here we don't have early childhood teacher. I only offer parent classes, so I do not have partner to watch the babies, and virtual is more doable for the parents. And I conducted a survey, and half of the parents will not be able to join if it was not virtual. So it's, that's interesting. And also the current parents in my classes, like most of them, they have children in school age, like elementary school age. And there are some, they have, toddlers and preschoolers. So I mean, this is Montana, and it's there is challenge to grow the program. So but I really hope I'm hoping to work with the state extension. They have something there might be opportunity there. So I'm seeking. I'm kind of talking about that with them. So hope that will happen in this fall. And recently I accepted a part-time position from a nonprofit organization in New York City. And they launched a new program, individualized parent education. And so I am one of the consultant, like a one-on-one session. So I look forward to that. And they have actually population speak Mandarin. I look forward to that because I really like, I always thinking of desire a culturally responsive curriculum, and maybe there will be opportunity there. So I really enjoy learning. Actually, it's really interesting, a mixed feeling. I feel like I was never apart from Minnesota because everywhere I go and wherever I talk to, I always talk about ECFE because I work at ECFE and I really love the ECFE. So, it's a really mixed feeling. So I really feel like kind of my home base here. Perfect connection. Thank you very much.
Usually, what is the agency in New York that you're working with?
Family Kind. They focus on helping families. They are going through divorce or after divorce or some kind that family. Yes.
So like this, Family Kind. Oh, I just put.
Yes, it is connected. So these two words are connected together.
Oh, I see.
Family,
so
Family Kind org.
Okay. Interesting. Okay.
Yuji, I mentioned I had a friend in Montana who was working on ECFE, and one of my bosses said she has a friend in Montana in Billings who's an early childhood person. So I said I would work to connect you if you were interested.
Oh, definitely. Oh my God. That would be great.
Okay, let me send you my boss's, I'll put in the chat my boss's email, and you can just call her. You can just email her and say, hey, I'm Mary Kay's friend in Montana, and she said you had an early childhood friend. And I'll tell you, they're really swamped, our bosses, these last couple of weeks. So it may not be quickly that she will respond, but it may not be quickly. Okay.
Oh yeah. So, and I wonder, Mary, so I wonder, Mary, so if it's possible, you can send an email to both of us. So
yes, I can do that.
Yeah, that will be better for me.
Okay. Okay.
Thank you so much.
Can you give me your emails to make sure I get that?
Sure.
Thank you.
Sure.
Thank you.
Usually one of the doctoral students that I'm on her committee still at the U is doing research on not Chinese families, but Hmong families, and who are experiencing divorce. And it's very interesting reading her work because she brings it up, I think, is sort of white Americans, we think of a very sort of traditional, very legal divorce and sort of helping families with communication and that sort of thing. And it's been very interesting reading her work because so much of it is cultural, right? And so much of in terms of, it's not necessarily a legal divorce, but it's also a cultural divorce, right? And then also all of the dimensions of cultural parenting in the Hmong community and what that means when, when the two people are no longer living together. And anyway, if the work that you're doing with this wonderful agency in New York is just even looking at the description, as if they're assisting Chinese families, who are experiencing divorce and the parenting classes, that would be, I'd be very interested to hear about your experiences with that.
Sure. Yeah, I will keep you updated. This organization, I really admire the founder of this organization. She was a lawyer for the city for divorce, law, and she saw, the parenting was parenting class was so helpful to those families, because the children are in the between, right? They use the children as, like leverage forces, and really damaging the children's growth. And then, so that was really helpful. And then what happened? The city, they short of fund, they cut that program. And she really felt like it was a huge loss. And she resigned and started this organization. It was not easy, but she's this university, this organization is really, helping a lot of family. And I'm new. I just, like this program is a new one. They just launched it. It might take a while to get the momentum, but I will keep you posted. Thank you. Yes, and that Hmong, like PhD student, her work, I'm interested in her work too. So I would like to learn more later, when I need that information. Thank you.
Yeah, good luck with that. So what would you like, what does anybody like to bring to the group in terms of any questions or ways that the group can support you as you launch your new school years, and in Jenny's case, new job?
I have a question for the group, since many of you are a lot more experienced than me. So we start September 19th. So we start a week later than some districts. So I have some time in the next 2 weeks to basically do some lesson planning. And just was curious if you have certain lessons or topics or approaches that you find really foundational, like that you, even though you're customizing your classes for the parents in front of you, you might have some things that you're like, every fall I do this. And I met with Nikki Murphy last week, which was awesome. She's,
Yep, she is.
yeah. But I was asking her the same question. And one of the things she said was she often usually in the fall does a lesson on reframing this idea of, here's your child's behavior and how can we reframe that in a different way to not be, just to be more positive, like what is from the child's perspective, what are they learning? And you might be seeing a behavior, but what's another way to look at it, sort of, as and she said then she ends up, that's a phrase or a framework that the parents keep returning to over and over again all semester and year. So I was just curious if there's any like topics or particular lessons that you find foundational in your work with families.
It's not so much foundational, although I do end up returning to it. I'll almost always start with the love languages in the first couple of weeks, because I think it's so important for the parents to understand how they refuel, how they refill their bucket, how easy it is to drain that bucket. It's partially just a way for them to understand how do you, what kind of love do you give out? What does your spouse or your partner or whoever return that? But mostly, is your bucket empty? Do we need to find a way to fill it? So.
Thank you.
Not necessarily right away, but almost always every fall I do a class on temperament. And we talk about how important knowing yourself and knowing your child, how important that knowledge is toward building relationship, which kind of goes hand in hand with love languages. But who is this little person? how are they the same as me? How are they different than me? How does that affect our interactions with each other? Ends up being something that once we talk about that, that opens the door for a lot of other talking about relationships.
Mhm. Becca, do you use that temperament tool? I think it's called IT3. I learned about it in the Maplewood district, actually. I'll,
I do. I've got a couple different handouts that I've used, and
okay. When we're done with this, I'll
I would
find,
love to see it.
I'll find the link and send it to this, or put it in the chat in a second.
And Susan, I read your comment about parents resonating with that. I think it's one of the reasons I like having it at the beginning of the year. It kind of brings parents into feeling connected and like they're learning something new. And it sets the stage for that instead of someone just telling them how to parent, right? And then we move forward with how individual our needs are and stuff from there.
Yeah, it's interesting because, you know, when we designed the evaluation tool and we were looking across all the indicators, you know, we were trying to find discrete ones that would, so that we hit as many of the various domains and that sort of thing. And, and just even asking parents before you came to ECFE, after you've been in ECFE, you know, that area of temperament out of 12, I think, indicators we had, always repeatedly, like district after district, was one that parents reported the greatest change on. And you're right. And I think a lot of it is because it's not a topic that is more broadly discussed, not, you know, in sort of the, you know, sort of in the popular parenting world or whatever. It might be more on, you know, the big, you know, the sleeping and the toileting and the eating, you know, and then discipline and temperament, like, is connected to all of those, right? And then I think the other thing is like temperament versus personality, because in the bigger world, we talk about personality. We talk about people's personality and we refer to ourselves as our personality and that sort of thing. And it can be easy for personality to be mistaken, or for temperament to be mistaken as that. And so I think then when parents come into ECFE and when there is a really salient conversation about temperament and about what it is and how you can be attuned to it as your each individual unique child, and what it means to you as an individual. You know, I think for a lot of parents, it really is a, you know, it kind of blows their minds because it's a new topic, right? And they do feel much more grounded because they have learned something. This isn't just an opportunity to vent, to talk, to kind of get better at what they already know, to compare notes, but it's a topic. It's a topic that they've come here and they've learned about. So I appreciate your mentioning that.
Susan, thank you for bring up this temperament versus personality. That is a very interesting topic to me. And when I taught personality, right? So I kind of attempted to bring up this when I talk about temperament with the families, and then I attempted to bring up personality, and then I encountered some kind of challenge is about the definition of personality. So it's kind I researched and I didn't find a satisfying resource regarding personality. So in the end, I kind of compromised. So I compromised with my colleagues' opinion. So we changed into behavior pattern. So we use that term. So that is something I would love to learn more, like what other parent educators talk about or use regarding personality. So yeah, thank you for this.
Any other foundational lessons? And I would say I will add one of mine, which is circle of security and attachment, because I think that's important at every age, whatever the children are. But any other?
I usually start with asking parents what they want to talk about for the year. That's really one of the foundational things. This year, I'm going to start right ahead of that, talking about the kind of communities we want to build in the world and the world our children are in, and then how that applies to us as a community, what we want it to be like. So it's newer for me. Many parent educators I know start with something they call joys and concerns. And when I have subbed a few times, I have asked classes, well, how does so-and-so parent educator run the class? And they say, well, we start with joys and concerns, and sometimes that's all we get to. Well, because we're paid to be a resource using verifiable and scientific information, it's really hard to do that without having any prep on what we're going to talk about. So yes, we can talk about things that we care about, but I always make sure that the topic that parents have chosen has at least half of the discussion time connected to it. So I don't use joys and concerns at all. I tend to start class with a question relating to feelings and experiences related to the topic. So if the topic is what kind of community do you want to build for your children and your world, I might start with what has been your experience in different communities, and what are you especially focused on wanting to help make for us here. I mean, that might be one, but I think that if all we're doing is venting, A, I'm not a trained counselor, and B, I don't think that's what I was hired for. I realize that may be objectionable to some folks, and I'm sorry that might feel that way. But I really do think that we are there to do something of significance, and just venting isn't sufficient for me. So that's what I want to start with, is talking about how we want this community to be, and what that means about the kind of community we're trying to build for our children and our families.
Yeah, building on that, Mary Kay, I really, before I get into temperament, we definitely talk about the classroom and our classroom community. Just that seems like first things first, right? And making sure that this is a safe space for everybody, both for occasional venting or sharing of stuff that might feel sensitive or vulnerable, like wanting people to be able to be vulnerable in class. That's where I think meaningful growth comes from, is a willingness to be vulnerable. So that's often a piece of the beginning of the school year for my classes as well. And finding out what topics are most interesting and feel the most need from parents coming in. They might not know what they really need yet, but sometimes people have strong ideas of like, we've got to get this eating thing, or, you know, like the typical ones, but it's a chance for them to say, this is really what's on my mind for them in their parenting journey too.
Yeah, my list of topics has included not raising children sexist for the last 30 years, and it has included dealing with racism for the last 15. And 15 years ago, people thought I was outrageously political for wanting to talk about that. Well, our school district is now 60 or more % children of color, and that didn't just happen overnight. So I think now the school district's talking about it, and it's kind of like validating, oh, this might be helpful to talk about. But parents choose, you know, and if there's anything related to sleep or eating, that always hits the ground first, you know, up front, because if the family's not sleeping, our ability to process anything else is not very helpful.
I will just say that I do not let parents choose all of our topics at all, because there are things that I feel like how would you know that this is important to know if you don't know about it yet, right? Like, so I try to do a balance of, hey, what are you coming in here hoping to get out of class? What is it that you need? Getting some of that and having a guide, often guide the order in which I might do something. How important is this to this group? And it makes me want to make sure that those things that were most important to families, I'm going to hit during the time we have together. But it's my parents are definitely not choosing the curriculum.
Going back on the community piece, I think that a real value of bringing that in early is it's because the context of learning, of course, cuts across the entire environment, the whole time. So it's not a topic, right? It's the way that we're learning together in this classroom, and and then I think labeling it and talking about the value of community as a value for learning, like, because we're so focused oftentimes in traditional learning and education, it's about the individual learner, right? And about how much do you understand the information, and how much are you going to be able to apply it in your life, and how can I as a teacher differentiate my instruction to help you as an individual, but yet it is a group setting. And the one thing that comes out over and over and over about ECFE or about group learning is how it's a different way of learning than it is learning as an individual, and the teacher more as a facilitator and not as an expert, right? And so creating that, helping to create that dynamic of community from the outset is critical, but it's technique, and Jenny, you may already do this, but a lot of parenting educators, I do it myself with my undergraduate classrooms, is creating the community guidelines as a group. So what is important to this group that we are going to follow as a group to respect each other, to create, because I think that it's easy to say, this is a safe space. But again, if I walk in and I'm, a parent of color and these are all white faces, their sense of what is safe is going to be different than mine, right? Or if I'm a 16-year-old with my first child, my sense of safety is going to be different than all of these middle-aged parents that, have it down, or so I think. And so, I believe that it's also very important to let all voices be heard, to identify what is going to create a sense of community for you. What do you need for this space so that it is conducive for your learning? And in part, I do that because, at least in my courses where we talk about technology, again, using our phones can feel like a very personal thing, a very individualized thing. I use my phone, or I'm on my computer, I'm on my laptop, and here I am, I'm just taking notes, right? But one of the things we do very early on is to recognize that when you're on your phone or when you are on your laptop, you are in a social space, and the way that you are using that technology has an effect on other people, right? And the way other people are around you is going to affect you as an individual. So I think for me, it's like getting people out of that I'm here as an individual, and for 1 hour in my whole week, I am part of a community, right? And now this person is giving me the agency to help to determine how I am going to feel most comfortable with this community, and what is going to be good for me to learn, and it can be something too as simple as the whole unscented deodorant thing, right? That, some places will just have it out there and everybody follows it. But if it's not, or about allergy, it's just like, it's important to me that people understand when we bring snacks, that we, it's important so that I don't have to worry about bringing up the whole nut thing, right? Because that's just me, right? So yeah, I think that I would just echo early and setting the stage as facilitators. It's critically important that we send that message of building community.
Can I ask just a practical logistical question, since I've never been an ECFE parent educator in September? Do people do the group norms and the topics on day one of a separating class? Or do you just focus on building community that first day?
For me, I mean, this is just how I do it. We really do, it usually takes a week or two, just introductions. So the beginning is building introductions, and then we'll move into group norms and expectations, and build it. I love the idea of it just being like, what do you need for a community? Like doing that is usually what follows, where we already feel a little like, okay, we at least know who's in this group now, we at least know who each other are a little bit. What do we as a group want?
And what do you, when you say introductions, can you say more about what you do there, Becca?
Yeah, I don't have anything in front of me right now, but I have like a little getting to know you like questionnaire, and I have parents fill it out, and it's, I don't know, does it have like 8 questions on it or something? It's one way of me getting an idea of some of that, like, what are you hoping to get out of this class? What do you do in your life outside of being a parent? What children are you coming here with? You know, and then I let them know when I give them these on the first day that I'm going to keep these pieces of paper, right? So it also is something for me to look back on as I'm getting to know classes, because, you know, if I'm meeting 50 people in 1 week, I'm not going to remember the stuff that they're sharing. So they fill that out and share, and we share those, and I let them know they're free to share as much or as little as they want from that worksheet, but know that that questionnaire is something for me to hold on to and that I'll see. So don't write something you don't want me to know down on it, you know. And I got that from my parent educator in St. Paul. That's what she did at the beginning of the year, and it seemed like a good way to just start by getting to know who's in the group. So we do that first and then move into group guidelines. And another lesson I do in the fall that I really, it's probably my favorite lesson I do all year, and we end up referring back to it throughout the whole year. It's called Two Lists and a Third, and I know I shared this last year in this group. But the first list is venting. The first list is what is hard right now with you as a parent that your kid's going through, and everybody makes that list together as a group. We write it down on the board. The second list is, imagine your child now in their late 20s coming home for Sunday dinner or whatever in your family is your way of gathering again with an adult child. Who do you hope they are? What is your hope and dream for this adult child that you're done with your job, right? They're grown up. Who is your child? What do you hope they are like? And we make that list together. And there's a lot of reflection after each list. So it's just like, what was helpful about making this list together, stuff like that. And then the third list is, how do we go from list A to list B? Like, how do we get there? And that's what ECFE is going to be about. How do we get from what's hard right now, the reality of this is what it is right now, to this is the grown-up who this challenging child became, and how do we get there? And I love that as a foundational, like, we refer back to that. Remember that third list, you know, and they often come up with really good stuff for that third list that is then leading in to other lessons. So, and they've made it. It's not me coming up with any of the things on those lists. So
That's great.
Yeah.
And that's a positive discipline exercise, right? Except for the third one, the third list is your own take on it. So I don't,
No, I think the original thing is called 2 lists and a third.
okay,
So I might be wording it wrong, but
okay,
yeah, the third is how do we get there?
Yeah.
So
great.
yeah, it's
Love
a
it.
fun exercise to do.
Mhm. Sarah, when I said, do you start with group norms or how do you start your first class? You were reacting. Do you want to share? You're muted.
I also do group norms in the first or second list class, and I really try to make them to encourage the parents to come up with them. Sometimes I have to give a little bit of a prompt, like, what would you like? What if somebody does this? How would you guys like to have that dealt with or addressed? But to the greatest extent that I can, I really try and have it be completely parent driven. And then I bring that out. If not every week, then most weeks, especially when we're having harder conversations.
You know, Jenny, when talking about the foundational courses topics, and I usually start with a new group, right? When I start a new group, I usually start with, after introduction and the ground rule for the group. So I will start on parent self-care and like a self-care, self-acceptance, and self-forgiveness, because I feel like I usually I think parent development is the foundation of any improvement in parenting, and that is one of the focus I start with, and I feel like that was really kind of effective to the parents in my group. And I remember one of the parents, she said, oh my gosh, I always felt guilty when thinking about self-care, like doing something for myself. And so hearing the word from you as a professional parent educator, I feel released, and I feel like I got some permission to do some self-care. So that was something, I do.
Thank you. I was thinking along the same lines, Yuji, and also, I don't know if any of you know the self-compassion practices. My mindful self-compassion was Dr. Kristen Neff. It's basically this idea of, it's like a 3-step process for recognizing when you're upset or having a hard time, and then noticing or intentionally saying to yourself, this is a human emotion that I'm having, or this is a human reaction I'm having. And then I'm blanking on the third step, but it's just basically a really simple self-compassion practice. It's called, the third step is just giving yourself compassion. And it's sometimes as simple as like rubbing your cheek and saying, this is really hard. This is really hard. My kid is crying and I haven't gotten sleep, and many families go through this, and this is one of the hardest things I've ever done. And just, whatever. So it's just a simple practice that I thought would be a really good foundational one in the first month or two, because that has been transformational for me personally. This idea that you don't have to just sit in the hard place, but you can kind of pull on the fact that many people go through this, and it's okay that I'm going through this. It's hard, but it's almost like comforting yourself away. So, but the self-care is in the same vein, right? It's like, how do we have some compassion for this hard thing we're doing as parents?
Yeah, Jenny, I so resonate with you about compassion. I feel like, so talking about a relationship, right? So I think the first step is intrapersonal relationship. So if we don't have a good relationship with ourselves, and how can we have a good relationship with other people? So I see, when you talk about compassion for self, that, make me think about that, intrapersonal relationship. Thank you for sharing this. And I took a workshop on compassion.
Well, and I think the reason that self-compassion is so powerful for parents is because in our usual mode is to beat ourselves up. Like, I can't believe I yelled at my 2-year-old again, right? Which is, it doesn't help change you, right? So this idea of stopping and noticing how that your emotional reaction to what you just did when you do things you don't like about yourself is how you affect change, right? Is to say, oh yeah, that was really hard. It's okay. What can I do next time to make it better, kind of thing.
Thank you for that question, Jenny. I love everybody's answers, and just like I do every single week that I'm here, like I feel fired up with ideas for, oh yes, I need to do this and that, and pulling things. So thanks, that was a great question. I think I'm gonna have to go take my kids to the pool now.
Yeah, question that comes out of when I'm feeling panic about how I start the year. So it's really helpful to hear everyone's responses. Thank you.
Yeah. You'll be great, Jenny. I'm excited to hear about your adventures in Roseville.
Thank you.
I hope everything goes well for you. Yeah, and for everybody. So just quickly, so you, Jenny, you said you start on the 19th. Has anybody already started classes? Not yet. Okay. And then anybody, are you all around the 19th then?
I'm on the 12th.
A little bit earlier. Okay.
Phil Egan Savage is the 12th as well.
Okay. All right. Good. So you have nothing to do between now and the 12th.
But I think Ellen has already started. I think this was Ellen's first week of classes. So.
Okay.
Wow.
Yeah. Well.
And Susan, how does it feel not to be starting classes?
Whoop, whoop, whoop. It feels great. I knew that I would start to feel retired when fall semester started, because summers are always so weird. And the fact that I am not sitting in a faculty meeting or a day-long faculty meeting or getting emails from students about why they can't come to the first day of class, or reminders going through my checklist on everything that the learning management system needed to be updated to be able to open it to students is like all like pinch me. I don't have to do that. So it's feeling great. And once I come back from New York, my gap year will begin, and I will especially feel unencumbered from professional stuff. So yep. Anyway, so I will see you all in 2 weeks, and hopefully a couple of you at least will be back next week. And I look forward to it. And so let me quick check something though. Does anybody have, can anybody record? I'm going to stop the recording right now. And